Good evening. We bring you the latest in the world of sports. I'm Paulo Del Rosario.
We give you the conversations you want to hear from your favorite icons and athletes. I'm Diego Dario. And in tonight's game plan, we'll break down the exciting matchups to look forward to in the PVL All-FIlipino Conference.
And we'll take a look at what to expect in the final window of the FIBA Basketball World Cup Asian Qualifiers. Buckle up, sports fans. Let's get in the game. All the stars come together in the heart of volleyball, the PVL All-FIlipino Conference. Now, to tell us which matchups of elite talent we should be looking out for ahead of tomorrow's game day, we have with us volleyball analyst Neil, the real deal, Flores. Neil, how are you doing?
I like that.
I was expecting that from Pao.
Yeah, something, again, no preparation whatsoever from a Flores to the real deal. Neil, first of all, thank you very much for coming on over. Great games you have tomorrow, especially for teams that haven't necessarily started out well, particularly Army. Army going up against Choco Mucho. Let's talk a bit about how these teams are going so far. What do you make of their campaigns?
Right, again, for both of these teams, it hasn't been the best starts. Choco Mucho won their first game in 3 straight sets, but they fell back-to-back in 3 straight sets as well. And for the Army Lady Troopers, they're still looking for win number 1. And at this point of the conference, at this point of the league, it's already vital for you to build on that win-loss record because only 4 teams will proceed to the next round.
Now, we talked about the teams and their situation right now in the conference, but let's talk about the matchups. Who should we look out for dito sa game na to, Neil?
First of all, we have to look out for the battle of the outside hitters. It's going to be Royce Tubino against Des Cheng. And medyo magkaiba yung roles nila. We know that for the Army Lady Troopers, Royce Tubino has been that consistent top scorer. And without Jovelyn Gonzaga in the fold, nadoble ngayon yung cargo ni Royce Tubino. Because let's face it, in terms of recruitment, other commercial teams have that edge compared to the Army Lady Troopers because these players are enlisted. And in their last game, she had 20 points. And for Des Cheng, all-around player siya for Choco Mucho. She contributes to the scoring, but she also contributes heavily on the non-scoring skills. And for Choco Mucho, when they don't have their middle blockers going, importante na mag-step up yung outside hitters.
You take a look at that particular matchup and I'm a bit concerned for itong si Royce Tubino only because you mentioned that having to take over the scoring cudgels from Gonzaga, who's not part of the team this conference. And you kind of have to spread the wealth there. Kaya ba ng Army, Black Mamba Energy Drink Lady Troopers to manage their offensively and finally find the groove?
Yeah, for me, kayang-kaya because they also have other players in their pool. Which brings me to the next batch of matchups.
Segue ko eh.
In my head, diba? Yung middle blockers nila, Villarreal and Esguerra, will be going up against the veterans in Bea de Leon and Madi Madeag. And comparing their outputs in their previous game, mas maganda yung ginalaw ng middle blockers ng Army because Choco Mucho went up against Creamline and Madi Madeag only scored a single point. Bea de Leon only scored 3 points. So it was a very lackluster performance for their middle blockers. And this was primarily because the passing wasn't really great during that match against the Pool Smashers. So for the Army Lady Troopers, pwede na yun maging hinte. You have to break the reception pattern of Choco Mucho if you want na matanggal sa equation yung middle blocker so that they can just really focus on manning the wings of the Flying Titans.
Right, so that's going to be our first game for tomorrow. And let's move on to the second game, which is the Petrogas versus PLDT. They have similar standings right now at two wins and 1 loss. What can we expect from these two teams tomorrow, Neil?
For Petrogas and PLDT, these are the teams that are on the rise.
Yes,
different coaching systems right now. Coach Rald Ricaford with the high-speed hitters. Coach Oliver Almadro with the Petrogas Angels. And dito mo makikita na the change in coaching staff can also be the part na ikakapanalo ng isang team. They have different systems na patunayan naman yan ni Coach Rald with the Petrogas Angels. And for them, since they are picking at the right time, we are discovering new talents na dati nagagamit sa bench from their previous team, but now they're also in the starting unit.
Well, speaking about those already in the starting unit, these two were typically already, even before the coaching changes, part of the starting unit. Remy Palma and Del Palomata. Those were the highlights that you wanted to talk about here. You take a look at their matchup. What stands out for you?
Yan, double-digit performance for both of these players. And they're very similar kasi they have that court sense. Magaling sila magbasa nung opponent setter. And they also contribute heavily in the blocking department. And that's your first point of concern when you're a middle blocker. Get the points off the block, get the rebounds, let the others do their job and attack. Kahit nga hindi sila masyadong pumuntos as long as they serve as that decoy, okay lang eh. But the fact that they score double digits consistently, that just says a lot about the talent that they have.
And before we move on to the next matchup that you want to point out, no, I mean, you talked about the new coaches of these teams. What makes it, different this time around, this conference for both these teams?
Especially three games in, medyo alam na natin yung mga changes that they've implemented.
They have different training regimens, that's for sure. Personally, I know Coach Oliver, I also know Coach Rald. So I know how they really focus on specific skill sets. Yun yung nagiging character development ng bawat team na hinahawakan nila. So that's very interesting kasi after a few sets of adjustment, nakikita na natin that the players are already flourishing with the systems of their respective coaches.
Now let's talk a bit about some of the more the fresh legs here on the teams. Itong si Gretchen Soltones and si Joey Prado.
Always fresh legs.
They feel like they have been turning back the clock in terms of getting back into peak shape, peak form. Gretchen in particular, 14 points against Signal last time around. What do you have to make of this particular matchup and of course their performance so far sa conference ito?
Feel ko ganun yung nangyayari this conference. Players turning back time, not just Gretchen and Joey Prado, even Aiza Maizo Pontillas and Michelle Morente. So all of these players now, they already have that opportunity to shine. And for these outside hitters for PLDT and Petrogas, isa sa mga outstanding skill sets would be their passing. Yun talaga yung nagsastabilize nung transition of play nila. Gretchen Soltones is actually the best receiver right now of the league. And that's the goal for Coach Oliver. Sabi nga niya, challenge siya si Gretchen Soltones. Let's bring back that MVP form.
Yeah.
And for Joey Prado, she has been very consistent even in the reinforced conference when she was just on the bench for a substitute. Pero now she's back in the starting unit. Also a stabilizer when you need the point. Not too flashy, but very effective.
So let's put more shine here on the veterans that have been shining here in the conference so far. Because a lot of people would say that the game of volleyball has been changing. It's a lot quicker. But then you see all of these older players, with all due respect to the word older, as Maiza Pontillas and the others have still played the same way as they did before. What makes them so effective in today's game?
I guess how they view the game. Parang ngayon, they know. I think the word that I'm looking for is restraint. Alam nila kung kailan nila pupwerestehin when you're talking about offense.
Yeah.
And I think the perfect example would really be Aiza Maizo Pontillas. You know, the timing that she hits that ball, alam mo kung kailan siya nag-iisip, alam mo kung kailan niya gustong i-power through. So it's always amazing to see these players still shine and compete with the young guns kasi never-ending yung umaakit ng talent sa TVL. That's what makes the league so competitive. Hindi tayo nauubusan ng panibagong stars.
And we're very excited to see all the volleyball action, Neil, and thank you for the time for giving us a preview for the games tomorrow.
Thank you.
And of course, catch the PVL live every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. Watch the games on One Sports, One Sports Plus, Signal Play, and the Smart Live Stream app. And after the break, we'll set the stage for the upcoming FIBA World Cup Asian Qualifiers. Stay tuned. You're watching The Game. Welcome back, you're watching The Game. Gilas Pilipinas is ready to battle in its final window of the FIBA World Cup Asian Qualifiers. The Philippines will take on Lebanon on Friday, February 24, and Jordan on Monday, February 27. Both games will happen at the Philippine Arena in Bocaue, Bulacan. Now, joining us to talk about what to expect in the upcoming window is former Gilas member and basketball analyst and the Big Chill, Isaac Go. Welcome to The Game, brother.
Thank you for having me again.
Alright, before we started off with Gilas, let's talk about this window first. I mean, 5 teams already qualified here in Asia, which is Philippines, Japan, which
17
are the
teams
hosts.
actually. 17 teams have already qualified.
From Asia, but only 5.
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah.
So New Zealand, Australia, and Lebanon. So only 2 slots left. They're fighting for 2 slots. So how important is this final window, Isaac, for all the teams that are going to be playing?
It's always important because you're building towards the World Cup. So every game matters, having the chance to see what the system is, what the players look like. But in terms of qualifying, I think it's very important. This is windows crucial for Jordan because, as you have said, they haven't qualified yet. They probably need one or both wins just to qualify. So it's the pressures on them to perform.
And of course, Lebanon has never lost to the Philippines. If I'm not mistaken, there will be a couple of key members from Lebanon missing this leg in particular, making it a bit easier on Gilas Pilipinas. But then the winning pedigree, Isaac, I think it's safe to say that we cannot ignore that. And of course, the strength of your entire program nila.
As they always say, when one guy out, another one will step up. And we've seen guys who've produced. They may be losing YL Arakji, their best scorer, their best point guard for this window, but at the same time, it gives other people the chance. Maybe guys like Ali Haidar takes on a bigger role, and now you can see now how are these players going to respond with a bigger role and hopefully bigger production.
Well, of course, from the games, let's talk about the pool that we have right now. No final lineup yet for this final window, but one thing's for sure, there's no Jordan Clarkson in this window, of course. The naturalized player is Justin Brownlee. How does this change the landscape for the Gilas Pilipinas team? We're finally going to see him play for Gilas.
I think everyone's excited because this is a long time coming. This is going to be his first Gilas games donning that jersey. And I think when you compare him to Clarkson more like a 2-3-4, while Brownlee's more of a 3-4.
Right.
But Brownlee, of course, we know he can score. We know he's a veteran. And we've seen what he can do, especially with a Filipino crowd behind him.
Probably more Pinoy than JC. I mean, just
in terms
of being here in the Philippines and all that, right?
Well, he did say change his name to Justin Noipi. But when you take a look at itong si Justin Brownlee, and of course, every member of the crowd is going to be behind him. I wouldn't be surprised if there were never a chance for him at the venue. But then you take a look at the pool. One glaring problem that the team has is injured si Isaac Go.
Yes.
Wala silang big.
No, it's not just me.
But all joking aside, Isaac, I'm sorry that's a joke. Pero the big man situation of Gilas Pilipinas is not ideal. Kai Soto, not part of the window. A few injuries here and there in terms of the big man. Japet Aguilar, not there as well. How can Gilas Pilipinas cope with this?
Number one, you have one of the greatest PBA players of all time in Junmar Fajardo. And I think there may be people thinking that he's slowing down, he's getting up there in age. But Junmar Fajardo is still one of the best Filipino basketball players that we have. And of course, we're going to see Justin Brownlee probably a little bit out of position because his best position is probably the 3. But I think with the height problem, he'll be sliding more to the 4. And maybe we see some young guys like Mason Amos, Kevin Kimball get more of a chance to perform and given the role on how to see they will fit in Gilas' future plans.
And Isaac, one quick question. I mean, you've played in the UAAP, in international for Gilas as well, and in the PBA. What's the difference between, professional basketball and international basketball? Because, why can't we just fill in the team with all the best professional players and not just, now we're thinking about who to put in and all that?
I think number one, everyone is bigger, stronger, faster, better.
Right.
Yeah.
In the most basic level possible. But at the same time now, experience plays a big factor. And fit. Because you only play 2 games, 3 games. It's not a lot. You don't have the chance to wait for them to gel. Like, you have to see who fits well together, who fits certain roles that the team may need, and who will become the leader out of the group.
Well, it's talking about leadership and of course talking about these guys playing alongside each other. May mga bata rin on the team, in terms of Shawnee Winson, Jerome Lastimosa, Mason Amos, as you mentioned as well. And the question now is how can the chemistry continue building here for this Gilas Pilipinas team? Because a lot of these guys have played with each other, of course, but then the road to the World Cup, FIBA Basketball World Cup, will require a bit more time together as well.
And that means that's where I think another thing comes is you have the timetable speeds up.
Yeah.
You can't wait for anybody now because constantly building for the next window,
Right.
next tournament. These young guys have to get along, have to get on the bus with these veteran guys, with the leaders of the team, and have to gel quickly.
So for this upcoming window, I mean, for Gilas, they still want to win. They still want to, get things done here. What do you think they should focus on more, especially now with new players coming in, Isaac?
Number one is probably the defensive end. We know that we have guys who can put the ball in the basket. We have Justin Brownlee. But it's going to be in the defensive end because I don't think we'll have problems putting points up on the board. It's if we can contain the opponent our opponents to a lower score than us.
Well, scoring is not going to be an issue again based on the talent that we have there. But Isaac, we're not letting you go yet. We're going to ask even harder questions when we return because our Gilas discussion continues after the break. Stay tuned. You're watching The Game. Welcome back to The Game. Now, we went over what to expect from the side of Gilas Pilipinas in the upcoming FIBA window. Now, let's talk about the matchups we have in this final World Cup Asian qualifiers. Now, still with us is Gilas alumnus and basketball analyst Isaac Never Stops Go. Isaac,
You
actually pulled it out.
He's always on TV and all that.
yeah, he's
Never
just
stops.
there. I mean,
Always working.
You can try to avoid him, but you can't. Right. But Isaac, all right. So the last meeting against between Gilas and Jordan, there are a couple of big pieces. Jordan Clarkson, Kai Soto, both of them not there. In fact, if we take a look at his numbers here, 16 points and 7 rebounds and 2 blocks itong si Kai Soto. It's type of athleticism, type of defense you can't really replicate with the tools that we have here so far. How much of an issue will the big man position be for Gilas Pilipinas?
I think number one, you're gonna change something fundamentally in defense. Back then, you can funnel more. You can force these teams to drive more. Basically, you had Kai Soto. You did have Japan Aguilar manning the rim. Now, probably be a little bit more conservative, stay in front, and try not to challenge shots. Or if ever these big men are gonna help early, it's to rely more on the rotation to cover it rather than, okay, Kai, go get it, erase it.
And of course, this Jordan meeting was when we all realized na si Dwight Ramos is also a great defensive player. Hindi lang siya offensive threat.
Well, I'm sure Isaac knows that though. You've worked with Dwight a couple of times.
Dwight is one of those all-around guys. He can score, play, make, and defense. But that's probably the one thing that was pointed out because held Dar Tucker, who a lot of guys struggle with, and he's really good, held him to 9 points in the second half, and that says a lot. With Dwight on top of that, having decent production. So it's finding these two-way guys who are able to contribute on both ends of the floor.
And talking about two-way guys, of course, let's talk about this guy, Scotty Thompson, na nagpakilala ulit wearing the Gilas Pilipinas jersey.
Yeah.
Personally, I did not think that Scotty would translate from the PBA to Gilas, but in that game, he had 8 points, 13 rebounds, and 8 assists, almost a triple-double. What makes Scotty Thompson still effective in the international game, Isaac?
I have to agree with you honestly because in Ginebra plays a lot more off guard. Lets LA, Stanley, Nards handle a lot of the ball handling. And Gilas thrust into the role. He's the primary playmaker. You saw the heart. You saw that he went up for those rebounds. It's not that he's athletic, he's longer than most guards. He wants it. And that's, I think, the important thing that he brought to the table that, hey, I want to play for Gilas, I want to be on this floor, and I want to be in the game when the game matters.
11 points, 3 rebounds, 5 assists. Itong si CJ Perez against Jordan in 18 minutes. Most importantly here, 0 turnovers. That's going to be a big talking point in just a bit. Itong si CJ Perez, people may have forgotten that back in 2019, the FIBA Basketball World Cup, he was arguably one of the 2 bright spots of Gilas Pilipinas in that campaign wherein we ended up dead last. You take a look at CJ Perez and being comfortable around Gilas Pilipinas, I think it's safe to say that he's found that comfort level scoring despite limited minutes.
CJ's one of those guys, he's just a baller. When he goes out there, he produces a lot of good things, scoring. And he's, again, another one of these two-way guys where he can give you 20 points and still guard the best player. And I think now we'll see, will he get a bigger role now? Because 18 minutes is sakto lang. Rotation, solid rotation guy. But will Coach Chot or Coach Tim now give him a little bit more responsibility, seeing what he can do, what he could do in limited minutes?
Yeah.
Now, before we move on to Lebanon, I just want to ask you, why is it important it's going to be a 12-man lineup. Why is it important for players to do a little bit of everything in the international stage, Isaac?
Because with 12-man lineup, when someone gets into foul trouble, rotations shorten quickly. And I think that was the case in before when you had a tournament format where you needed guys who could do a little bit of everything because of course, as the tournament progresses, you want to sit some guys. You want to change matchups because you're going to get comfortable because scouting comes into play. Maybe injuries. You never know when you're going to have, let's say you're a 3-man, all of a sudden your 4-man's in front of you, you have to slide down. So you need that flexibility in able to do a little bit of everything.
Yeah. Now, let's talk about Lebanon. As Pao mentioned earlier, we haven't won against Lebanon in this qualifiers. Why do you think so? What is Lebanon doing and what should we do to get over the hump against Lebanon?
Simplest answer, they put more points than us on the board, but
Score more.
Score more. That's the game.
Basic, right.
But I think it comes again to the defensive end because we have no problem smashing firepower. It's how are we going to hold this team up? Can we stop them in transition? Are we going to limit fouling? And especially now with no more shot blockers, the defense will have to change.
Right.
Are we going to now funnel more outside? Are we going to contain a little bit more, force them to shoot a little bit off the dribble? So these kinds of tactics come into play, but at the end of the day, it's defense and rebounding.
21 turnovers against Lebanon last time we played them. They gave up 22 points of turnovers on about Gilas Pilipinas. And it could be a function of system, new players coming in together, not really knowing where to go and who to pass to. Can we expect an improvement, especially in this department, considering that there should be a bit more familiarity between the players we have on the floor?
Definitely, and we already know that they're going to bring the pressure. They still want to prove. They have guys there that are fighting for their roster.
Yeah.
Right? So I think we'll be taking care of the ball. It's going to be how do we handle this pressure. At the same time, it's a trial run for what will happen in the World Cup. Because what pressure is that now compared to the World Cup where you have these world teams coming in?
Yeah.
so many fans. This is just a taste of what's gonna be like in the World Cup.
Well, I cannot wait to see all these in action. Of course, Isaac, thank you. You've been playing for Gilas, and thank you for all your insights.
Thank you. I hope to play for Gilas more in the future.
Yeah,
That's
then,
for
then,
sure.
then we'll call him Isaac Give and Go.
Ooh, I like that, pal. Well, don't miss out on the Gilas Pilipinas final FIBA window in the World Cup Asian Qualifiers. Catch the games live on TV5 and One Sports, and of course online at Signal Play and the Smart Live Stream app. And that's it for tonight. Thank you for joining us. I'm Diego Dario.
Catch weeknights here on One News, One Sports, and One Sports Plus. I'm Paulo De Rosario. This has been The Game.